In the 1940s, between the River Thames and Mersey in Britain, floating forts were built, which were known as the Maunsell Fort. During World War II, these forts were built to protect against enemy attacks, but over time, their glorious history has slowly faded, turning into a mysterious story. There are many terrible truths hidden inside these forts, which have long caused panic among the locals. Why for so many years no one dared to enter this fort? In today's video, we are going to show you some mysterious places that have been abandoned for almost 100 years, places you wouldn't even think of visiting. So please watch the full video, and new friends, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Runit Island. If you ever fly over this particular part of the North Pacific Ocean, you will witness a strange scene. However, you can't even imagine going down there, because it is Runit Island, one of the most dangerous places in the world. It consists of 40 islands and is a remote and unique area that was selected for U.S. nuclear weapons testing after World War II. From 1948 to 1958, 43 nuclear tests were conducted on this island, leaving behind 85,000 cubic meters of radioactive waste, which remains extremely dangerous to this day. That waste contains plutonium-239, half of which takes about 24,000 years to decay. So what did they do with this hazardous waste? The answer lies in a massive dome-shaped structure. According to the U.S. government's plan, the radioactive material was gathered and placed into a hole 330 feet wide, which was then sealed with an 18-inch thick concrete cover. Since then, the entire island has been off-limits to the public. However, in the 2000s, the U.S. Department of Energy published a report assuring that there would be no danger from the site for the next 20 years. Despite this, the residents of the surrounding islands remained unconvinced, and their fear is understandable. If the concrete dome cracks or breaks, it could have catastrophic effects across the region. Living near this nuclear testing area could become a curse for anyone. Poveglia Island. Located in the ocean between Venice and Lido, in an area known as the Venetian Lagoon. Its past is so tragic that any contact has been prohibited here since the late 1960s. This is Poveglia Island. The first settlement started from the 7th century, and the population began to grow gradually. However, in the late 14th century, due to war, the inhabitants were evacuated for safety. Despite the Venetians winning the war, the island remained uninhabited for centuries. Then, in 1645, 5 octagonal forts were constructed on the island, of which only one survives today. After that, the island remained deserted for a long time. This changed dramatically when 2 ships carrying plague victims arrived. Poveglia was then quarantined and used as a plague colony. For years, about 160,000 people, even those with mild symptoms, were sent there. Almost none of them ever returned alive. Many were burned to death. And it is said that half of the island's soil is made up of their ashes. However, this dark history did not end there. After the Black Death epidemic, early in the 20th century, the island was repurposed as a mental hospital, fragments of which can still be seen today. At that time, advancements in mental health care were poorly understood, and patients were subjected to barbaric treatments, such as lobotomies and electric shocks. Local people tell stories of a mad doctor who worked at the hospital, conducting cruel and experimental treatments on patients. Many of them reportedly died during these procedures. The hospital was eventually shut down in 1968, and the island has remained abandoned to the public ever since. Entry to the island is officially prohibited, with the justification that the buildings are structurally fragile. However, many believe that it is one of the most haunted places in the world, where thousands of restless souls are said to wander, turning the island into a ghostly domain. Abandoned fort. Various remnants of World War II are scattered around the world. But if you think this place in front of you is from another world, that it's almost reasonable to think. These strange, alien-like structures can be seen at the mouths of the Thames and Mersey rivers in Britain. These are fortifications built during World War II and are known as the Maunsell forts. The Royal Navy operated these forts to monitor and defend against German air raids. When the war ended, the fortifications were decommissioned, and most were abandoned. However, the history of one particular fort located on the Thames banks is much more unfortunate. It was abandoned in 1958 and lay vacant for several years. But in 1964, English musician Screaming Lord Sutch set up a pirate radio station here. Everything was going well until June 1965, when Calvert's rival Oliver Smedley took over the fort through a secret operation and demanded £5,000 from Calvert. Calvert, of course, refused and tried to negotiate with Smedley, but Smedley wasn't willing to compromise. The situation escalated into turmoil, which ultimately led to Calvert's tragic death. However, Smedley was released, and the lack of justice forced the government to close the marine station. In February 1967, Radio City was shut down for good. These forbidden places remind us of some locations that can be dangerous for us. They are fascinating and mysterious, though. Their horrible histories and dangers teach us to be cautious. Which of these places did you already know about? Feel free to write in the comment box below. So see you in the next new video. Thank you.